One penalty shootout. That is all it took. After years of planning, years of spending, years of rebuilding, Arsenal's dream did not collapse over 90 minutes. No, it collapsed from 12 yards. Arsenal came to Budapest with a squad valued at around 1.23 billion euros. PSG came with an even younger, even more expensive machine, around 1.37 billion euros in squad value. And after 120 minutes, after a 1-1 draw, after 5 kicks each, PSG won 4-3 on penalties. So this was not just a football final. No. This was a billion-euro business war. Arsenal's $3.1 billion project had already conquered England. But in Europe, PSG's machine showed them the final level. And by the end of the night, PSG did not just win a trophy. They protected their brand. They protected their dynasty. They collected the winner's bonus. And they turned Arsenal's dream into one more painful lesson about modern football. So tonight, we are asking the real question. How did PSG's billion-dollar machine break Arsenal's $3.1 billion dream? Welcome back to the Football Xtra Live. And look, today, we are not just talking about goals, assists, penalties, and sad faces after the final whistle. Everybody will tell you Havertz scored. Everybody will tell you Dembélé equalized. Everybody will tell you Eze and Gabriel missed from the spot. But here, we go deeper. Because this final was not just about who held their nerve. It was about money, squad value, prize money, brand power, player perception, project building, and the difference between winning England and ruling Europe. In our last deep dive, we asked whether Arsenal's estimated $3.1 billion football project was powerful enough to bring the club back to the top. The answer was yes, in England. But in Budapest, PSG asked Arsenal a different question. Can that machine survive Europe's most brutal test? Can a 1.23 billion euro squad stay calm when the trophy is one kick away? Can an expensive project buy the final layer of European ruthlessness? The answer, at least tonight, was painful. Before the ball was kicked, the financial story was already loud. Arsenal were not underdogs in business terms. This was not a small club trying to shock the giant. This was a Premier League champion with a squad valued around 1.23 billion euros. Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, William Saliba, Gabriel, Kai Havertz, Eberechi Eze, Victor Gyökeres. That is serious football capital. That is not the Arsenal of the old banter years. That is not the Arsenal that had to sell its best players just to protect the balance sheet. This is the new Arsenal. Expensive, structured, ambitious. But PSG arrived with a squad valued even higher, around 1.37 billion euros, and with a younger average age of 24.2. And that matters, because in football business, youth plus elite performance equals asset power. A younger billion-euro squad is not just a team. It is a future resale machine. It is a sponsorship magnet. It is a Champions League project with years still ahead of it. Arsenal's squad looked powerful. PSG's squad looked powerful. And younger. That was the first warning sign. Now the trophy was emotional. But the money was real. Both clubs had already secured around 18.5 million euros simply for reaching the Champions League final. But the winner would receive an extra 6.5 million euros. So when PSG won the shootout, they did not only lift the trophy, they collected the additional winner's money. They protected their Champions League status. They strengthened the commercial story of the club. And they gave every sponsor, every fan, every executive, every future player target one simple message. Paris is not chasing Europe anymore. Paris owns this moment. And that is why a Champions League final is bigger than prize money. Because 6.5 million euros is not the whole story. The real money is in what the trophy does next. Shirt sales, sponsorship leverage, player valuations, global attention, touring power, social media growth, negotiation strength. A Champions League trophy is not just silver. It is a business accelerator. Then came the 6th minute. Kai Havertz, goal. Arsenal 1, PSG 0. For a moment, the whole Arsenal project looked complete. Think about it. Arsenal were Premier League champions. They had ended the 22-year domestic wait. They had survived the Emirates years. They had rebuilt under Arteta. They had spent big. And now, in the Champions League final, they were leading PSG after just 6 minutes. That goal was not just a football moment. It was a brand moment. It was emotional value. It made Arsenal look bigger, stronger, closer to complete. For a few minutes, the story was perfect. Havertz, a player who has carried pressure and criticism, suddenly became the man opening the door to European immortality. And if Arsenal had won that final, that goal would have lived forever. But football does not pay full value for almost. Football pays for completion. And PSG were not finished. PSG did not panic. And that is important. Because for years, PSG were mocked as a club with money, but no Champions League mentality. Too many superstars, too much noise, too much glamour, too little control. But this version is different. This is not just a club buying famous names and hoping something happens. This is Luis Enrique's PSG, younger, sharper, more balanced. And when Arsenal scored, PSG did not collapse. Vitinha kept controlling rhythm. Kvaratskhelia kept attacking space. Hakimi kept pushing. Nuno Mendes kept stretching the pitch. Dembele kept waiting for the moment. And in the 65th minute, penalty. Ousmane Dembele steps up. Goal. 1-1. Now listen, this is why clubs pay elite attackers. Not just for highlights, not just for shirt sales, but for moments where the entire financial and sporting project is standing on one kick. Dembele scored. PSG breathed. Arsenal's dream started shaking, and then came the shootout. This is the cruelest part of football economics. Because after you spend billions, after you build elite squads, after you hire world-class coaches, after you create global brands, after you sell the dream to millions of fans, one human being still has to walk from the halfway line and kick the ball into the net. That is where money meets the body. And the body does not care about valuation. It feels fear. It feels pressure. It feels the stadium breathing. For Arsenal, Eberechi Eze missed. David Raya gave Arsenal hope by saving from Nuno Mendes. Declan Rice scored. Gabriel Martinelli scored. But then Gabriel stepped up and missed. That is the image Arsenal fans will carry. For PSG, Gonzalo Ramos scored. Desiré Doué scored. Hakimi scored. And Lucas Beraldo finished the job. PSG win 4-3. That is how a 1.37 billion euro machine survives the final test. Not by playing perfect football, but by staying alive when the night turns ugly. Now let's be careful here. Official market values do not change 5 minutes after a final. Transfer market does not update an entire squad just because one penalty was scored or missed. But perception value? That changes immediately. And in football business, perception matters. Kvaratskhelia value story got stronger. He finished the Champions League campaign as player of the season with 10 goals and 6 assists, and he won the crucial penalty in the final. That is not just performance, that is brand elevation. Dembele's value story got stronger because he delivered under pressure. Vitinha's value story got stronger because he controlled one of Europe's biggest nights. Marquinhos, Nuno Mendes, and PSG's defensive spine gained another layer of credibility because they are now part of a back-to-back Champions League team. For Arsenal, the picture is more complicated. Havertz's story improved because he scored in a Champions League final. Declan Rice's leadership remains huge. David Raya's reputation did not collapse. He actually gave Arsenal hope in the shootout. Gabriel and Eze, their market value is not destroyed. No. One penalty does not erase a season, but the memory of the night changed. And football is a memory business. Sponsors remember moments. Fans remember moments. Clubs remember moments. History remembers moments. That is why Champions League finals can raise or stain a player's story forever. This is the real difference now. Arsenal's project has worked, let's not lie. The $3.1 billion journey delivered the Premier League. It brought Arsenal back from the emotional damage of the post-Highbury years. It turned them from nearly men into champions of England. That is massive. But PSG's machine has now produced back-to-back Champions League titles. And in football business, that is the ultimate return on investment. Because Champions League success does more than fill a trophy cabinet. It proves the model. It attracts players. It strengthens commercial negotiations. It makes sponsors more comfortable paying premium money. It makes young stars believe they can win the biggest trophy in Paris. It makes the global fan base grow. And most importantly, it changes how Europe fears you. For years, PSG had money. Now PSG have credibility. That is more dangerous. Because a rich club with no credibility is noisy. A rich club with credibility is terrifying. So did PSG break Arsenal because Arsenal lacked money? No. Arsenal had money. Arsenal had quality. Arsenal had a 1.23 billion euro squad. Arsenal had the Premier League crown. Arsenal had the early goal. But PSG had the final currency Arsenal are still trying to earn. European ruthlessness. That thing cannot be bought in one transfer window. You have to suffer for it, lose for it, return for it, and eventually, maybe win it. Arsenal are not finished. This defeat does not kill the project, but it does expose the next challenge. Winning England makes you elite. Winning Europe makes you complete. And right now, PSG look complete. Arsenal look close. Painfully close. So the final lesson from Budapest is simple. Arsenal's $3.1 billion dream did not fail because the money was wasted. It failed because Europe demands more than money. It demands timing. It demands nerve. It demands experience. It demands the ability to turn expensive talent into cold execution when the whole world is watching. PSG had that. Arsenal are still chasing it. And maybe that is what makes this story so powerful. Because Arsenal's machine is not broken. It is not fake. It is not finished. But PSG exposed the final layer still missing. The layer money cannot fully buy. So let me ask you, did PSG prove Arsenal's project is incomplete? Or was this just the painful night Arsenal needed before finally conquering Europe? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more football money stories, not just headlines, but the power, pressure, business, and emotion behind the game, subscribe to the Football Extra Live. I will see you in the next one.